Here are some of the basics of adultism. Basically, the term was first coined in the beginning of the 20th century by Patterson Du Bois, which actually surprised me because I didn't realize adultism was so old. I thought it was a rather new term, but that's actually pretty cool to hear. And it's basically just the oppression of young people as age-based social identity groups and the establishment of relationships of domination and subordination that are organized on the basis of age. And this just comes straight out of the text, so that's a good resource. And some contextual background behind adultism is that there are a lot of direct effects of, people being victims of adultism, and that manifests itself in low confidence and a lack of self-worth. And then as a result of this, there's a feeling of powerlessness and lower function in the world, which finally end up being seen in mental health issues such as depression and suicidal attempts. So there are a lot of building blocks that are kind of cascading down when you see, victims of adultism, what they're going through, and just ultimately the negative effects it has when you're constantly being talked down upon. And that's also just coming from the text, so I thought that was another really good resource. And finally, some examples of adultism can be seen in day-to-day rhetoric and in systematic oppression, so to speak. So, in the day-to-day statements, you get things like, you're so smart for your age, which is condescending, and you're too young, you wouldn't really understand, in any context, just when you're talking to someone, when an adult is talking to someone, younger than them, that's kind of how they're phrasing these phrases, which seem, a little harmless at first, but if you really look into them, as I was mentioning in the context, there is some, harmful effects. And in a systematic way, there's, when you have schools, you have these double standards of teachers yelling at you to enforce a rule, but then when you yell back at them, this is so-called, harmful to a learning environment, and it's something you shouldn't be doing. And if you want to hold the teachers accountable, then you have to hold them to the same standard that you're holding the kids to, which is, there shouldn't be any yelling on either side of a work environment or a school environment. And workplace employers as well, they're expecting younger people to perform jobs of an older person when they hire them, but they don't give the respect that comes with those obligations. And I'm sure if you ever had a job in the workforce and you had a boss who's a little uncooperative, you may be able to resonate with this. I know I have. Sometimes it just seems a little frustrating when you're doing the same things that someone older than you is, but you're not getting the respect that comes with those obligations. So understanding adultism is pretty important to know the history behind it, what the context of adultism does to the victim, and finally some day-to-day examples and systematic examples of adultism.
Ranveer, do you know what adultism is?
No.
Do you know what adultism is?
I do not.
So basically what adultism is like the oppression of younger people by adults. It's usually like it subordinates younger people, like talks down to younger people and like makes them feel inferior just simply because of their age. So like growing up, have you ever been told comments such as like, when are you gonna grow up, or you're so smart for your age, or things like that?
Yeah.
Could you like talk about a specific time that you felt this?
Going on a trip with my cousin out of state. Throughout the entire trip, he kind of just tried to tell me that because he thought that I wasn't ready to be out in the world on my own, like in certain circumstances, like especially internationally. So I mean, he would tell me that. So
like, have you ever been told the comments such as like, when are you going to grow up, or you're smart for your age? Have you ever heard that like personally to yourself?
Not really. If I've ever heard something like, you're smart for your age, it's just normally you're smart.
Mm-hmm. They don't really tie the age into it.
Yeah, I don't think so.
Also, have you ever felt subordinated by older people, specifically adults?
Yeah, I mean, when people say a word and then like define it after, just assuming you don't know what a word means, because it could be too complex for your intellect. But I can't recall a specific experience. Maybe like at a golf course or something, wanting to drive a cart and them saying, oh, you're not old enough to drive, when there are no laws against driving golf carts.
Yeah. So like, in your experience, who played the role of the adult in regards to adultism?
Well, my parents, my dad especially, always wanted me to grow up, I guess, faster than I should have. So, I mean, he expected me to act older than I was, I guess. So he'd get angry when I didn't in that circumstances.
Who do I think plays it? What do you mean?
So, like, do you think like parents do it, teachers, professors, or, like employers?
Parents, I definitely don't think do it, just because whether it's your own parents or other parents, they know their kids and other kids' abilities, I think. Teachers and professors, probably the same sort of thing, just because they're around kids a lot. And like your example, you said you're smart for your age. I don't think I've ever seen that really come from teachers.
So, like, growing up, do you think like you've internalized adultism in any way? Like, you felt like because of your age, like that's how you had to act, or like just because like society like in regards to society, like younger people are always supposed to be the subordinate to older people?
I feel like that used to be the case, but now it's changing, especially like the younger generation is definitely growing up way faster than like we did as kids. And so like I feel like they're put to a different standard than us now.
A major consequence of internalizing adultism is that young people learn that they need to perform the role of the subordinate and yearn to become the role of the dominant. And this kind of means that the role of, or the oppression of young people will continue on in the future. So in your opinion, do you condone adultism as a proper form of oppression, or do you think this oppression is negative for the progress of society?
I feel like it's negative because then you're putting all these boundaries on people to grow to a certain extent when they shouldn't, when they should be able to grow as their own person at their own pace.
Do you condone adultism, or do you think this oppression is negative for the progress of society?
I think the idea of treating children how children have always normally supposed to have been treated makes sense to me. Yeah, I think children should be treated like children until they can kind of prove that they're not. I think the opposite of adultism would be to treat everyone of different intellectual levels kind of similarly, which would probably have an adverse effect on kids growing up. I think that'd be a little weird. They wouldn't really understand what childhood is.
Yeah. Can you think of any intervention strategy to improve the situation of adultism? Like any changes that you would make to how society's acting now, just any like hypothetical reasoning that you could think of?
I feel like if anyone ever says that to you, act your age, or you should, in any circumstance, like ask them, what does that mean? And maybe you'll get a better understanding to what they mean, and you could help them understand your perspective on growing up.
Can you think of an intervention strategy that would improve the situation of like kids being treated as kids, or like trying to just like find like small things in a way that would help, like not really necessarily fix adultism, but like that improve it?
But I think just in general, it would be a good thing for adults to keep in mind how they're talking to younger people, and like with their kids, for example, just ask their kids how they want to be treated and how they want to be talked to.
So we created an adultism forum and asked Santa Clara students if they've ever experienced this type of oppression, and the questions we asked were how old they were, if they've ever been treated of lesser value by an adult. We also asked, have you ever been told subordinated comments such as, when are you going to grow up, or you're so smart for your age? We also asked students about their experiences, who played the role of the adult. Also, we asked if they condone adultism or they think this oppression is negative for the progress of society. Also, we asked if they had any type of intervention strategy that they could think of in order to improve the situation of adultism. So looking at our results, we had 11 responses of Santa Clara students that range from 19 to 22 years old. Everyone that took this said that they have been treated of lesser value by an adult or someone older than them. Everyone that has responded to this form has said that either a parent, teacher, employer, family member has played the role of the adult. There were 54.5% of our responses said that
they think that adultism is a negative form of oppression in the society that we live in. We also had a plethora of different responses in regards to an intervention strategy in order to improve adultism. We also had a lot of responses that talked about awareness and education of parents, teachers, elderly, the older population.
So our adultism group has come up with 3 intervention strategies to combat adultism as a form of oppression. And the first one is spreading awareness to teachers. And our option for this is basically just teachers need to become allies with their students, because we believe this will help have a more progressive education system in communities. And our action is to include a form of anti-adultism training in the teacher's curriculum, which will hopefully allow them to connect better with their students and see them more as, like peers learning with them rather than just subordinates, so to speak. I guess the only drawback of doing this, though, would be it could enforce values that a teacher might not agree with when they're doing their training. If, the adultism values aren't something that a teacher necessarily connects with or understands completely, you could experience some resistance from teachers. The second intervention strategy is spreading awareness to parents, because adultism, as a form of household depression is probably pretty common, especially from the people we interviewed. They said the same thing. So we need to inform parents about adultism and its effects on their kids. And we want to do this by creating community centers that offer seminars to inform parents about specific ways they could be actually subconsciously enforcing adultism or even purposefully enforcing adultism. The only drawback of having these seminars is that parents might feel that they're the ones who should be parenting their kids and no one else needs to teach them how to parent their kids. So they could have an adverse reaction to these seminars or just choose not to go in general. And then finally, our last intervention strategy is ascribing more rights to people that are not solely based on age by creating laws that prevent age-based discrimination for a younger population. So right now, the ADEA, which is the Age Discrimination in Employment Act, actually only covers discrimination for workers over 40 years old to combat ageism. So we want to add to the ADEA to include combating adultism as well as a form of age-based discrimination. And this potential drawback would be it would promote a premature workforce dynamic. And what I mean by that is that younger populations could be replacing older workforces too soon, and that could its own be a form of ageism. So in this drawback, we need to find this kind of sweet spot between ageism and adultism, where the two populations can work together and mutually respect one another, and in this way create a healthier workplace environment. And we believe these 3 intervention strategies are probably the best ways to go about combating adultism based on the people we interviewed. We looked at the people we interviewed, saw what their responses were, and we created these strategies based on their responses to how they feel adultism is regularly present in society.
If we just take a look at the actions portion of our grid, we can see that these forms of progression have the potential to eliminate some of the common occurrences that are seen in today's society. For example, the textbook talks about the school-to-prison pipeline. In order to help the progression of education in our community and possibly diminish the school-to-prison pipeline, teachers must be able to have higher expectations for the youth and believe in them. If teachers are subconsciously enforcing adultism in the classroom, then this is an impossible feat. This is why we think that simple awareness training sessions would be an amazing first step to end adultism for future generations. Similar applications can be applied in the household with seminars for parents as well. And looking at the bigger picture, since there are no federal laws that combat adultism in America, we feel that implementing laws that forbid age discrimination to not only people over 40, but also to people under 40, would act as a vector of integration to the youth in our society rather than segregating them out.